All right, all right, all right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and I pray everybody is doing well. I pray everybody is doing well. We're gonna give those who gonna hop on a little chance to boogie in. They be like, I'm gonna be getting started, on the dot. I try to move through. Today has been a long day, so I'm just gonna get this information in prayerfully, and hear back from what it is that the people, you, the subscribers, the listeners, the supporters, you guys are funny. What I mean? You guys make me laugh. I'm not lying. So yeah, this is me. I'm here. I'm still here. I'm still here. All praise be to the creator. So guess what, people? Greetings and welcome back once again. And it seemed like Wednesday night is the live night. So we have to make me roll up my sleeve because we have to go roll up my sleeve tonight. Because I'm seeing some stuff in the comment section that's making me go, hmm? Like, huh? You know what I mean? What in the world? Shout out to everybody who takes the time to leave a comment. I read them. It's much appreciated. I learn, I grow. So it's a blessing. You know what I mean? I came across one, and I know you saw it. Let me put back the screenshot up because I'm going to move through this. The lives are kind of to clarify, Amuna, what is Amuna doing? Where are we going with this conversation? We see 3 books up here. Marley and Me, I'm gonna read Dan Taylor. Bob Marley, My Son, which we've been reading. Sadella, hilarious. Sadella is an interesting storyteller. And Rita Marley, No Women, No Cry. So I was reading the 2 books at the same time, doing some cross referencing, weaving in and out of the stories, because I'm not just reading to be entertained. We're trying to find out where the truth in this conversation, this 40, 50-year-old saga in the Caribbean, and not just the Caribbean community, the world over, right? And there's so many, me here say, me not tell you say, me did it when, and you wouldn't believe, and somebody pinch me tell you. This is all the stuff we're hearing, and this person wrote, and that person wrote. To me, it sounds like a lot, and it can be very overwhelming. So part of this, and I'm going to tell you guys how it started. I don't think I even said how it started. It started like this. I was there minding my business. I like researching. I heard that reading books is not researching, but before I get in, let's read the definition of research. Creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. So if the knowledge has been increased on a subject and it has been creatively and innovatively studied and presented, I didn't just read the book, I studied and then presented the information. It's research, okay? So there I was minding my business, right? Then my mother come and tell me, say, boy, say, they have a Bob Marley movie coming out. So you must know this is January of 2024. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Hear me know with enough self. Oh, let me just go read a few books so that when I watch the movie, I'll see if it's accurate, because that's just me as a person. So I said, let me go read a book. So I read No Woman, No Cry. And I was like, that's curious. All the time I sing, no woman, no cry. I didn't know all of this stuff, right? So then I said, oh, well, in mother write a book, let me go read that too, because that's just how I am. So I read the mother's book and I'm like, And I did see Dan Taylor and I put it in the cart and I was like, I kind of want to stick to some firsthand accounts. And then I found interesting stuff. So I said, let me share it on the internet. And it took off. That's how we got here, people. It wasn't a planting in that respect. But shout out to everybody who has been supporting this organic extension of the love to read and share. All right. So with that said, make a jump in now. Yesterday, I came with some information, a preface from the Gleaner articles for Dan Taylor, because I saw some things that were interesting compared to what I read in the other books. And then I got some pushback like, Dan Taylor liar, Dan Taylor thief, don't read that. It's scandalous. Appears so in it. So I said, okay, let's compare and contrast. And this is what I'm going to do tonight. And hopefully it's going to be succinct, not to lose anybody along the way, right? So if I'm going too fast, just be like, nah, Mona, you moving too fast. Somebody said, well, shout out, thank you. You have the most accurate accounts. I try to. Reason being, I don't got a dog in this fight. Me no know them. You know them? Me no know them. We are viewing, we are living this experience from since we little bit. The song, somebody said something as I was listening, and I said, you know what, they're right. Even though Bob didn't himself write a book, they said Bob's songs are autobiographical. And when I heard it, I said, that's absolutely true. He didn't write a comprehensive book, but because everybody says he sung what he experienced, including himself, his songs are his autobiography. He's telling us what he was experiencing. I just started Prudent Man, no Prudent Mom, no worries. He didn't miss nothing yet. I tried to take it like a time. Bob's songs were autobiographical. And so with that in mind, the only issue with songs are just like today, who are they writing about? Unless he directly tells you, yeah, I wrote this about such and such, we can surmise, we can try to, dissect it. But the reality is, unless he co-signs like, yeah, I wrote that about this person, we don't know for sure. This is also autobiographical. We could say, me not like Dantilla I lied. Fine. But he has the right to tell his story, and we have the right to pick sense from nonsense. With that said, I'm going to go today in order. I picked out a scenario that I saw come up in 3 different books. We're going to quickly read over them, and then we're going to talk. Hopefully, that'll be all right with you, right? So because he came out with his book first, we're going to go in sequential order, because one thing I did say and comment on, it felt like to me, Cedella and Rita were answering someone, but they weren't referring to the person who they were answering. Don Taylor was a pimp at one time. Don Taylor is a questionable character. He says in here he was a scammer. He says in here he was born to a 13-year-old mom who put the pregnancy on another man. He says in here that he kind of grew up on the street, and that his father is a European white man, and that's kind of how he bonded, or they had some similarities, another trauma bond with Bob, because he can identify with being half black and half white. Like he said it. He said he was out here running scams, and that he was down at the port, and he was bringing making deals and bringing Oman Fisila and all kind of madness. But for the sake of today, make we jump to chapter. And don't worry, everybody. Don't worry. I'm going to read the same account in all 3 books. Cross-reference. You know, when you do research paper, I'll 10, 15, 20 peer review article you have to read and cross-reference them and cite them and put them in a 3 book. We can manage 3 book, man. We can manage 3 book. So on the topic of Bob and Rita, which is what we're going to be speaking about today, surprise, surprise, right? He's gonna say what we heard before, and anybody, if in the comment section, if I read something that we didn't hear before, you can say lie. If I read something that we did hear before, then say true, right? Because I mean, is everything the man saying a lie? Let's see. He says, I learned, for my part, I was learning more and more about Bob Marley and beginning to understand all the different political and personal things that happened and surrounded him. I learned, for instance, that Rita and Bob were wife and husband in name only. It was quite common for Bob during the early period of his career to tell people that Rita was his sister. Is that a true or a lie? Did we hear that somewhere else before? Rita said that, right? As he always did. Remember, he wrote this book first. It's important to know who came first. So before Rita wrote No Woman, No Cry, before Bob Marley, my son, he wrote this book. Okay, so true. Let's continue. It says, as he always did when asked by the media who she was. Alan Skill Cole also said that, right? In private, he went as far as telling Rita he did not want her to use his name. New piece of information. I never heard that before. He's introducing a new piece of information, okay? He goes on to say, I knew about this because I once witnessed an argument between Bob and Rita over this very matter. Rita Marley won't go name Rita Marley because she sing with the Wailers. So that alludes to what Don Taylor is saying, because he wouldn't even admit to the reporter that he was married and that she's only using it as a stage name. So what the private conversation Oh, no, no, stop. Give me a joke, man. Come on, now. The private conversation he said he was privy to, we only have to take it with a grain of salt and actually listen to what Bob said on record. No, she only named Rita Marley because she sung with him. Let's continue. Bob and Rita of this very matter when he reminded Rita that they were not married under normal circumstances. Who said that? Rita said he just popped up and married. The paperwork we read the other day when he told the immigration officer the conditions underneath them they were married, and he also tells his mother the conditions under which they were married. So true. We have our next true. Okay, good. Make us continue. It says here, he said, Rita, why you don't stop using my name? She said, now this, we have to take it with a grain of salt, you know. First up on the stand, Dan Taylor, right? Book. We don't know. We can't verify this conversation unless Rita tell we. Good night, everybody. But this is what he's saying he heard. Rita, why you don't stop using my name? She said, but I'm married to you. And he said, Rita, how you going on like you don't know how the marriage business go? That my mother was sending for me to come to America. And because you have the children, I decided to marry you so you could get a green card. And very often he would say, BC. Now, everybody in the chat, you know, I'm not cuss no bad word upon the people them things, right? Yeah, for the most part, we all know what BC mean, right? So, according to Dan Taylor, in my cuss all kind of BC. Rita, don't you know that? So he's feeling indifferent that Rita is not letting go of the name, and that even though it's only in name, we saw that indifference with his mother because his mother said he tore up the wedding photos, and he claimed that somebody obeyed him. Don Taylor lets us know, yeah, he was clutching the one cloth and the two. Don Taylor lets us know who he thinks obeyed him, okay? But his mother just lets us know that Bob thought he was gazumed, okay? Let's continue. So far, we're not reading a lie yet. We read something that's circumstantial, and so far, it sounded like what everybody else was saying. It was also during one of these family arguments that Bob told me Rita could sign his signature better than he could. Now, again, why he would bring this up? I think she's on trial at this point, and I found the trial papers. Interesting. For forgery and possibly what's going on with the accounts during the trial, right? So he's bringing this up during a time like this. Let's see here. But that's not what I want to go into right now. So let's jump down here. Rita was actually treated just like one of the workers. Isn't that what Rita told us? That when she went on tour after Bunny and Peter left the tour. Let me not say bow out. Prudent man said, a real detective. What you mean, man? No, she was Rita was cleared in the court of law. But I think at the time he's writing this, she's not cleared. And this is why that piece of information, he may have put it in for whatever reason, right? So let's continue. Rita was actually treated just like one of the workers. Rita told us that. She was paid a salary separately from the allowance Bob gave her for the children and herself. Is that true? Rita told us that when she went on tour, she had her own little money and she got paid like everybody else, right? Bob gave Rita no special treatment. When she went on tour, she got paid just like everybody. And when they were not touring, she was merely there in the background. What did Rita say? She said that she gave him space and she was a manager and a friend and a sister and running women out the room. And she wasn't in that capacity on tour, right? So Don Taylor, the outsider, is noticing their interaction even though they're married, right? So far, I'm going to see nothing is a lie. I think I'm going to save the auntie situation for another day. I'm going to save the auntie situation. I'm just going to keep going here. It says, in spite of all this, and we will read all this in our next time, I was aware that a special bond still existed. Now, this is Don Taylor, assessor, said that he was aware that even though all of this was happening in the public, there was a special bond. Me think a trauma bond, but a special bond. He says, and so I And in fact, all of us learned not to get into the relationship. There's a saying, them say, leave man and woman thing alone. Because you might be trying to come towards somebody in defense of the other person, and then the other person attacks you. So according to Don, while Bob was alive, he didn't really get into the sussus and the mix-up that was between them. You quickly learned, especially while on tour, that although they stayed in separate worlds during the day, as soon as everybody had gone to sleep, Bob would send for Rita. Did Rita say something like that? Did Rita say something like that? So far, is he lying? But did he lie? Right. Sadella also said, thank you, that Buzilu. Sadella also said that she didn't get in that them thing. Right. So we have two people saying that they witnessed this kind of back and forth, this kind of Caribbean Ike and Tina vibration, but they didn't want to get into it. Right. Let's continue. It says here, most people do not know this. Basically, most people don't know Bob would send for Rita in the night. I know this because I had access to his room at all times. Where did I have access to his room for, Dan? Where did I go in there for? It says that reinforced my decision to stay out of their business. So Don was like, when he really seen the flex, he was like, you know what? It's not my business, Joe. It's not my business. And I never involved myself in it during Bob's lifetime. Right? Here you know, because I'm going to cross-reference in the other book them, so stay tuned. I remember when Rita got pregnant with Stephanie, the first baby in question, right? Because between the first and second tour, and Bob accused her of seeing this other guy, dun, 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 called Ital in Bull Bay, where they lived. So the first person to come out with their autobiography is bringing up Ital in print, okay? And saying that from where he was standing, Bob was accusing her at this point. I'm sorry. Did Sadella say that? Did Rita say that? We're going to read what they said, because is all the book a lie? I'm just trying to figure it out. It said Baba Sample. Hey, I'm not read the comment then, you know, come here and try. We're going on my professional mode. Hold on there. All right. But now I can't read the comments them yet. Ital was a Dread who used to play football for the House of Dreads, a team coached and managed by Skill Cole, which is interesting. I did not know that. Now, if that's a true factual thing, the other part is when he's reading this, writing this, Rita's around, Skill Cole is around, Sidney Breakspear is around, Sadella is around, all the people he's name dropping is around. And he's still writing this stuff, right? So according to him, Ital was on a team that was coached and managed by Alan Skill Cole. So I wonder who told Bob about Ital. Now it makes sense. How did he know? Dun, 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 dun. I mean, other people probably told him, but his homie is right there. His homie is right there. It says here, who himself was a Jamaican national player of high repute. Rita had become close to Ital. Didn't Rita tell us that? We're going to read it again. No worries. Wait a minute. Rita had become, had become close to Ital, and it seemed that Bob had suspicions as to whether the baby was his. Imagine Rita. I'm not saying that the people in their circle didn't know. Imagine when this book dropped, though. But was it a lie? That's the question. Was it a lie? The result was that Bob never believed the child was his. Rita had, however, gone ahead and given the child Bob's surname. Did we hear that someplace else before? What was noticeable when the baby was born was that it had 6 fingers. That's a new fact. So you got to put new fact. I mean, I first may hear that, right? When Bob asked Rita about this, she told him that her father, Papa Roy Anderson, had 6 fingers, and it was probably hereditary. That was quick. That was quick on your feet, eh? That was quick. At the time, Anderson was living in Stockholm. Remember, Rita goes into telling us that Bob, in one of his tours, met up with her dad, right? So that coincides with what Don Taylor is saying, that at one point now, Bob is going to meet Mr. Anderson, which Rita told us. Let's listen. At the time, Anderson was living in Stockholm. It also happened that on the third world tour, Rita had missed the second tour due to pregnancy. We performed in Stockholm at Tivoli Garden, and Rita's father came backstage to meet Bob. Bob noticed that his hands were quite normal and showed no signs of extra six fingers Rita had spoken about. So Rita, according to the way Skill Cole is, Skill, why I'm saying Skill Cole, Don Taylor is saying is that the baby was suspect because Bob wasn't here. And when the baby was born, he still was like, yo, I don't feel him baby, but him not have proof. And now she told him no, basically to convince him that yes, it is your baby and the six figures is in the bloodline, right? Bob noticed that his hands were quite normal and showed no signs of the extra six fingers Rita had spoken about. Bob did not ask for any further explanation. Instead, reacting, he walked up to her and said, "Oh, you so busy, like gal. You want a BC kick." Now, we have to take that with a grain of salt. First of all, that's an interesting, that sounds like some Norval conversation right there, number one. But yeah, I'm going to continue. So, in Don Taylor's book, the baby is being contested, okay? Let's continue. I had did the initial video on Taki. I think like the first or second video is the video on Taki. And I just read it straight from Rita. Now we have to cross-reference. So that video is up. Now we're just cross-referencing between all of the Taki situations, right? Let me see here. After this, it was accepted that the child was not Bob's, but Ital's. Is that true? According to the storyline, is that true? Right? So so far, me not say everything the man I say I go so, but so far, right? It says, I remember vividly the day when Bob went to Bull Bay to confront Ital. Remember, Don Taylor, I write that book here before Rita write that book here, you know. Rita come back and come tell we say Bob show up with gal in the car and confront Ital when she did go fetch water. Don Taylor, I tell we say Bob confront Ital. Either the two of them a lie, one somebody a lie, somebody a tell the truth. Let the jury decide. I could see the anger in his eyes and feel the passion bubbling, but after some quick and heated exchange, Ital stopped Bob dead in his tracks when he said, Man, I didn't know she was your wife, because every time I read something and the eye attack about wait, let me not do Ital them way there. Hold on the Ital, hold on. Me not know how Ital sounding, but hear it now. Man, I didn't, he said, man didn't know say she was your wife. Because every time I read something and there I talk about her, there I say, she's my sister. You see? So Bob word come back for bite him. Skill Cole went the other day on the thing, was like, I always warned Bob about that. Da, 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 da. It says the remark suddenly broke all the tension between them. And Bob started grinning. What's funny? What's funny, Nesta? What is she, your wife's sister? You tried to pull the Abraham in Egypt, Bob, and now that it backfired, Aman is like, yo, so now not skill code, what? Now Ataki is supposed to be like Pharaoh. Me never know, say it was your wife. You did tell me say your sister. The remark suddenly broke all the tension between them, and Bob started grinning. His own words had come back to haunt him. So he just picked up his feet and stepped and kept on stepping. And kept on stepping. Hold on there. Mm-hmm. All right. Am I going to something else? So, oh yes. In my eyes, basically he keeps going on how, Rita did a aisle Bob Marley locks and them the confusion, basically. He said they were confusing. You didn't know what to believe of them. Oh, I wanted to read this divorce part real quick because people say, well, why they didn't divorce? This is from Skill Cole's perspective. Hold on for me 1 second, everyone. Our background getting a little loud. Okay. So when Bob came and sat beside me, there was some cuss between Bob and Rita, and Karen's mother, he just popped women on him and be like, see one baby, Rita, come look on that baby. So he's saying that Rita wasn't having it at this point. When Bob came and sat beside me, he told me that he wanted Rita off the tour because him and Rita was beefing, right? Give me 1 second, please. Island Twist follows Jackie Brown, a young girl who finds herself head over heels for the new island boy at school in fresh outer yard, and Jackie has the fever. But as she navigates the ups and downs of her new crush, things quickly spiral out of control when her not so secret admirer becomes determined to sabotage her relationship. So check out the new novel Island Twist over on Amazon today. Now back to the story. Yeah, sorry about that, people. You know what I mean? All right, I'm come back here now. It goes on to say, it's like when Bob was doing that interview with the lady and he said him entitled to all the queens, and then the youth them did not make noise, and him say, hey, tell them to make it stop making noise here, sir. That's how I felt in that moment. Like, stop all this noise now. Let's continue. It says, when Bob came and sat beside me, he told me that he wanted Rita off the tour, that her presence did not allow him to concentrate. Hey, Rita, broke her concentration. But not like that. You have to take her off of the tour. We're going to need 2 eyes. We don't need 3. Sorry. That her presence did not allow him to concentrate, and he wanted her to be sent home right away. I had never seen this side of Bob before, nor did I ever see it again. Realizing that this called for a different approach, I said to him, Bob, what is it you want? You want a divorce from Rita? If you want, okay, we've never heard this story before. Well, I haven't heard this story before. This is Don Taylor saying that this is his personal account, his personal experience with Bob in this particular, what you call it. It says, if you want a divorce, I can handle it. I can get you a lawyer. But if you gonna divorce Rita, you have to go cut it off clear. So Bob is like, yo, I'm done. According to his testimony, is like, yo, Bob, if you want to off the tour, it's not just off the tour. You're gonna have to make up your mind because I see you wavering between 2 opinions. You're gonna have to make your mind up. And he's telling him, like, you're gonna have to cut it all the way off. So he says, you can't be tiptoeing in and out of our room at night when everybody's asleep and gone to bed. You got to stop that. So Don Taylor, although he's into all manner of foolishness, he's over here saying that he is being mature in this moment and trying to advise his client that he needs to get himself together. It says here, so according to the way he's presenting himself, is that if he could have had his ear and been the wedge that was going to separate them, he could have done that. But according to him, he stayed out of their personal lives, right? It goes on to say, Bob grinned in that special way of his, looked at me, and did an about face. He says, but you know, she's not a bad girl. Because I remember the days when she used to carry my record on her shoulder. And her shoulder used to cut from the box of record where she used to walk with through the hot Kingston sun and dirt. Question. Oh, Dan Taylor would have known that. Remember, Miss Rasta woman on the bus tell we say, she get lick off a bicycle. And what did our son put on Instagram? Say, love is when you get lick off a bicycle, a carry record. Paraphrase. So she told us that. How would Don Taylor know that? In 1994, unless somebody told him. Where did he get that from? Where did he get that from? So remember, they were business partners and personal. And Bob is saying that I can't deal with this because the personal is leaking into the business. Right? And Don is like, well, if you're going to, Father, yes. If you're going to sever ties, then you have to be serious about what you're doing. And when he put it to him like that, Bob retreats. So we continue to discuss it. And I told him that it did not look good for him to be beating up Rita in front of everyone on the tour. And I didn't go particularly into that part, but according to them, According to Don Taylor, Bob beat up Rita that day, right? Rita says they would get into fights and she would fight that back. And it wasn't like beat up, thump down, it was love taps. Don Taylor is saying, wait, Cedella is saying that they did fight and she didn't want to get into it. And Don Taylor is saying that at that time he beat up Rita in front of people. Let me read it. Allegedly. Yeah, allegedly. But again, the allegedly is interesting because the person who experienced this said they fought. If Rita didn't say they fought, then I would be like, okay. But the person who experienced the things said they fought. So let me read let me read the situation. Allegedly. One particular day, the pressure got to be more than Bob could take. And when Rita came up to the suite, he proceeded to beat her mercilessly. In fact, the fight wrecked the hotel room, and we had to pay some large repair bills the following day. It was only the fact that we were regular guests who usually did not create trouble that allowed us to get away as lightly as we did. Allegedly. Now, what do we know? He's saying this particular thing is what sparked the conversation about getting a divorce. Okay? Let me jump down. Essentially, he says, I did not sit in judgment on her because I recognize, he's talking about some money thing, right? That she had suffered a lot of mistreatment from Bob. This is Bob's manager, who's also testifying in the trial. This is during the time he's testifying in the trial. And he's writing in this book that the man that he helped to his career over the last however many years he was with him, allegedly mistreated his wife, abused her a lot, both verbally and physically. It was almost a regular thing, according to Don Taylor. So far, what facts do we have? So far, we have fighting by all three witnesses. Now, people may contest the degree of fighting, where the fighting took place. We have people, sometimes when people are in a relationship, and an abusive relationship, and make no mistake about it, by the sound of it, it is an abusive relationship. When people are in an abusive relationship, sometimes they minimize the hurt so that it does not look that bad. So just because Rita is saying it wasn't that bad, based on the conversation and what we saw publicly, what people saw, what they saw in their own spaces, you have to understand that there's something else taking place here. Yeah, you sung a lot of nice music, but the reality is this was a volatile relationship based on the accounts. Right. I agree, Monique. She plays it down. And that's what people usually do who are in abusive relationships. It's not that bad, right? But let's go now to the next book in order. So first Don Taylor came out, and now we're going to read sequentially. Okay, this is Cedella. This is Bob's mother. That was Bob's manager. This is his mother. Okay. She says, the next time I saw them, the sundering I expected had begun. Let me go here. Wait. Let me back up a little bit. So soon after Stephen's birth, Rita returned to Jamaica because remember, she went to Delaware. We had run into difficulties with her visa because it had been discovered she was not born in Cuba as we thought, making her eligible for refugee status, but in Jamaica. Again, it's the first time we're hearing that. They say that she was born in Cuba. Cedella is saying she wasn't. I don't know. as we thought, making her eligible for refugee. Moreover, Nesta was also in visa trouble. The immigration department having ruled that because he was now married and an adult, I couldn't sponsor him as a minor child. You heard what his mother said? His mother said that Nesta was in immigration trouble. Remember that whole thing we went over? The whole thing we went over about paperwork, and people was like, no, Muna, because he did not get drafted. Don Taylor said that stuff because he was getting drafted. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Not according to the paperwork. Okay. So the family returned to Jamaica with things just as shaky as ever between Nesta and Rita. The next time I saw them, the sundering I expected had begun. But no one had told me anything. I found out because on my arrival at the airport, no one met me. So I stood under the overhang of the terminal roof in Kingston while a wicked rain poured down without mercy, awaiting a ride that never came. Eventually, I took a taxi to their Bull Bay house. So Cedella came into town, and somebody must have forgot because they did not come and get her. It says here, soon Nesta came to the house and began quarreling that no one had met me at the airport. That's when I realized they're not living together. Rita was living in Bull Bay and Nesta at 56 Hope Road. And you know this had to be some time later, right when she came back, because according to Rita, she got Bull Bay after she came back. It goes on to say there was also a new child, a little girl named Stephanie. We just read about that in Skill Code, right? Born while Nesta was away in England on business. You notice how his mother put that in? His mother put Stephanie was born while Nesta was away. And one look at her told me she wasn't his. What did Skill Code? What did I call him? Skill Code. What did Don Taylor say? The baby was in question. The mother's coming and saying, one look at the baby, she knew the baby wasn't his. Her father turned out to be a friend of Nesta's, a man named Taki, who everyone called Aita. In fact, on this visit, I met the father, who drove a truck for a living and owned a house deep in the bush. And when I remarked to him one evening that he looked weary, he shrugged and said he was doing his best to support his daughter. Then he pointed to little Stephanie, innocently playing on the floor. So where did she meet Taki at? Interesting. I could do nothing but gape. Yet I found Aital to be a very polite gentleman who always greeted me with respect, saying, "How do you do, mother?" And one day when he thought I might be short on funds, he gave me money to tide me over. Why would she be short on funds? And if Bob was upset, is it the same visit? Because Bob was there. So why would Taki be giving money? Nesta must have known that Stephanie was not his child, but Rita refused to admit it and continued in this stubbornness for years. So the baby was in question. Don Taylor wrote about that years ago. Here comes Cedella saying the same stuff. Nesta fretted and fretted as though his heart would break. Really, Nesta? Really? I'm sorry, y'all. He kept pressing Rita. How could he be Stephanie's father? He had been in England. Who was the real father? Who? Inside, it ate away at him. He was like a man tormented by the truth, too terrible to face. My mother says, so no, you know. So is she telling the truth or is it a lie? Right? The truth lies in the middle. So is this the truth or is it a lie? One time, for example, Nesta called me from Germany, where now a successful and acclaimed performer with a worldwide following. He was on tour. His voice was tired and in pain. Mama, he said, I want a blood test of the baby. Hear me now, Nesta, I replied. Suppose you get the blood test and it showed the baby not yours. What are you going to do? Get a divorce? The wires hummed between us across the ocean, but his voice quivered with pain. I felt as sharply as if he stood at my side. Nesta, I counseled. You see the whole your pantour, and I don't think you should be worrying your brain about this now. Well, I said Nesta couldn't sing. Nesta was like, I can't even get in at the right key. When you're out there touring, just see if you can hold yourself together and do what you have to do and Not get involved in all this mix up. What is all this kind of mix up? Don't bring down no pressure upon yourself. Nor did Rita even try to hide. So again, we find a lie, y'all. We trying to find a lie. We trying to find a lie. Nor did Rita even try to hide her relationship with Ita. So the mother goes even further. Don Taylor tells us how the Ito conversation comes in and his proximity to Allen Skill Cole. Now, on the other side, Cedella is saying that Rita wasn't hiding. And we know in Rita's book, she's saying why she wasn't hiding, because in her mind, she was no longer married. One time, for example, she came to me and boasted about a ring that Ital had given her, and she flashed it off to me on her finger. I never mentioned this episode to Nesta, for Jah has given me the overstanding, not understanding, for one who grasps truth is not under but over, to deal with people. I would have only been spreading jealousy and strife. So clearly in Rita's mind, she not take back no chat. She'll go to man mother and say, you know, see where Taki get me ring. Yet part of the torment Nesta felt over Rita's unfaithfulness was due to his nature as a man. Once another man had entered a woman of his, Nesta would drop her forever. That was the way he was with Pat, Robbie's mother. That was how he was with Rita. Ma'am, Nesta, is that the only reason he would drop them forever? Yo, moms, y'all was helping this guy do what he was doing, man. It says, but he just couldn't bring himself to believe that Rita, on paper, still his wife, had taken a lover. Remember, we just read that Rita was only his wife on paper. That's what Don said. Here comes Cedella saying the same thing. So here's the confusion and the wicked part of the conversation. You mistreating the person. You have a tumultuous relationship. You don't want to separate. She's only your wife on paper. You're taking all of the things that you create and dumping it on her, and then also expecting her, not saying it's not just. It doesn't sound very just. It doesn't sound like a just equation. And he's lamenting not over how unjustly he's treating her. He's lamented, says she take man. It says here, one time, for example, when Rita and Nesta had their own house in Delaware beside mine, Nesta barged into my kitchen and wanted me to follow him next door to confront Rita about what Ita had said about having to support his daughter. How him hear that if you say you never want feed strife? Where you get that from? Stephanie, it took all my understanding of the human heart not to make matters between them worse that day. Finally, one day, Rita admitted to Nesta that Ita was the father of Stephanie. The admission was made while Nesta was on tour in California with the I3s, Judy Mowatt, Marcia Griffiths, and Rita. After the truth came out, Nesta said to me ruefully, imagine, it take Rita 3 years to tell me the truth. 3 years to tell me the truth. 3 years. The anguish and hurt he felt over Rita pierced him like a heart, like a dagger. I heard him singing a song once about being hurt. Help us now. I can only imagine the song where he did that sing. Father, give us a strength. I'm trying not to do too many jokes because I got one more account to read, but I resist. I heard him singing a song once about being hurt, and I knew immediately what the words meant. Rita had broken his heart. That was the account from his mother, matching up with the exception of a few details about the whole situation between Nesta and Alpharita. And we have one more person to talk to. Alpharita, come and talk to me and you make me hear what you say now. I don't mark my book, so I not jump around. On the same situation. For those who like, Amuna, why you? It's cross-referencing. Same account. It's like you saw something, but everybody saw it from a different perspective. So everybody who was there has to come and share their perspective. And then you pick some nonsense. Listen, we live in a house. You can live in a house and not know what's going on in the house. You can go to work and not know everything that's going on at work. So to think that just because someone is there, they know everything, that doesn't even apply to our everyday situation. Something could happen right now. Like the case they had the other day. They had to call everybody, because I like just listening to court cases in the background. You have to call every witness, the door driver, the Uber ride, the bank teller. You have to call all of these people to try to corroborate this story, to put it together, to get the truth. Everybody doesn't have all the pieces, but so far the pieces is lining up. Now let's go to what Rita said. They was talking about Rita. Okay, and their experience with Rita, and now Rita is talking. And I know I read this before, but if you know. Oh my goodness, the comment section is litty right now. I can't go over there right now. I have one more thing in this thing to do, and then I'm going to come over there. Let's hit it. Let me take a little sip. Hold on there. A water, people, a water. With Bob so often absent, daily life was more difficult. Although I didn't lack friends, remember, we read this already, but we're reading it in a new light, who would check on us, right? Besides Gabby, who had been so helpful in finding the house for me and was now my friend in Bull Bay, I had a good friend, Owen Stewart, a Jamaican soccer star, known familiar as Taki. Now we know Taki play pan team. What they call again? They forget that quick. What name my team again? And them they pan a dread football team. Alan Skillcole is the coach. Because he knew I was married. Interesting that she starts the paragraph because he knew I was married. Because Don Taylor's book says he didn't assume she was married. Taki wasn't into our friendship for sex or having a girlfriend, although eventually we did develop a relationship. And I found that interesting. She put this in parentheses. Started off because he knew I was married and then put that in parentheses. I think that was intentional. But she's answering someone. But he was one of those who felt sympathetic towards me because of the way Bob was treating me. How was Bob treating you? Even his manager told us how he treated you. Let's continue. In fact, he had occasion to witness the different women Bob sometimes brought to the house. And he was there to ask, why? Why Baba do you this? As for Bob, even before Taki and I became involved, so she admits it now, because the cat's out of the bag, right? When he just thought we had a relationship, he became irrationally possessive. Once he saw Taki with me and wanted to fight, we heard another witness. He had just come back from one of his tours. That's what the witness said. And I guess his friends told him that Rita could be very close with Taki. He came by the house one morning and the kids told him that Taki and I had gone to the river for water. So Rita was bringing Taki around the spot. So Rita was out brazen with it. She was not caring. Okay. All the people them know say, yeah, man, Taki down at the river. The government took its time about laying the pipes. I could say something there, but I'm going to not. When Bob showed up there as usual with a girl in the car, he left the girl and came down to the riverbank and, hey, Taki, you see me, woman, and blah, 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 and carry on like a wild man. I did that video already. But Taki said, no, Bob, we can't fight. We're brethren. And I'm here because she need help. You know, see the woman need help, Bob, make your go answer. Right? She needs someone, and you must respect that. Okay, we got a different version. Maybe he said all of it, some of it, none of it. Taki went very hard on him, and Bob was so sorry for the accusation and did admit it. Poor Bob. He could always see the truth, and he knew nothing was going on then between me and Taki. Again, you just said that something was going on. Now Bob knew that nothing was going on then. But I got upset. We read that part already. Let me jump down here. He was having Oman in our affairs. She says here, we will have a relationship because we're already family. But as for any sexual involvement is concerned, no. So Rita is saying that at this point, she withdrew herself from the marriage. And she and Taki is friends, but later on, they might going to be more than friends. Secret lover. But by then, Taki was already coming by sometimes to keep me company. Him was a good friend. We read all of that. He brought them food. He did all that stuff. Let's continue. This is the part that people object to in the book. We heard what everyone else said. We heard what the end point is. I find it interesting that she puts this. The next time Bob came to Jamaica, I was almost R-word. Okay. So she's basically saying he forced himself. Because this is where I had drawn the line, I am not having sex with you, she says, but he insisted you're my wife and I want you. And so we had sex. And here what she says, I think that's when I got pregnant. Now read it. Now, based on the fact that the baby is not his, according to the narrative, based on the fact that later on it comes out, why would you put, I think that's when I got pregnant again in the book? When I discovered I was going to have another child, my first thought was, my God, what is this? Because despite trying to overlook everything and to be a good sister, I was sick of his ways. Yep. She goes on to say, after that, at least for a while, it seemed as if we weren't going to be intimate anymore. Still, he just couldn't bear to know that I might find someone who loved me as a woman. So according to his manager, why don't you just divorce her? Oh, she used to carry my record them and it cut up her back and that's why I love her. Again, that's what I wanted to cross-reference today. Similar situation, sounds about the same, with the exception of a few details. I'm coming to the comment section right now. I know the comment section is on and popping. I am about to drop this link right here. And why did I just do all of that? A, to show that there's value in cross-referencing. I don't know anybody particularly. If I'm going to say what book was a joy to read, I'm going to say Sadella. But just because I'm inclined towards the way she tells the story doesn't mean that everybody else's story is invalid, right? And if we do that in our everyday lives, then we will be propagating injustices. Now, Sadella's book is very fun and animated, but Rita has a different tone, but what she has to say has value. Don has a different tone and he has a different reputation. However, where they intersect, it's either everybody's lying, somebody's lying, or nobody's lying. And it's just their viewpoint on the truth. So hopefully this little exercise illustrated that for those who are wondering, Amuna, why you read Don Taylor? So with that said, I'm going to come to the comment section and go ahead and drop this in the box. Okay, let's go backwards from what I just said upward, right? He didn't want to let it go. Yeah, that was apparent. But what also interesting later is that according to Don Taylor, his name is on the accounts and that he's the one who's moving money from here, there, and everywhere. Rita's names are not on Bob's accounts. And actually, Rita says that herself, that her name is not on the account and Bob kept his business separate. So if everybody's like, because he knew what she was going to do, this, that, and the third, well, how do we know that when he didn't even trust her enough to put her name on the account? That's just my thought looking at it. Let's continue. Sadella's story sounds embellished. Didn't Rohan live with Sadella? Yeah, they said he moves to Miami later on. Tate, I see Tate trying to come into the chat. The device is not connected. You can go out and come back again. Everyone has their own idea of truth. That some people tell the truth subjectively. All of us do, unless we're committed to being objective. And because usually it's not always going to show us in the best light. And we have to keep that into consideration. Bob had resentment towards him. I could see how that would be possible. I could see why or how she would resent him. See, we have Stephanie saying Rita is pretentious. Sadella book is the truth. Again, does it have elements of truth? Again, when I can go backwards and like look up a certificate, look up a Gleaner article to try to cross-reference what's being said, I do that. You know what I mean? So that we can see what's going on here since we're so vested in this conversation. Or we're talking about married men forcing themselves on their wives. It does happen. We weren't there. I don't know what happened there, but to say it doesn't happen, it does happen. Let's see. This is part that confused me. Bob took it and Rita mentioned that's when Rita started. That's when she got. Yeah, I think that was not being totally, being that you like, she in the book you gave us, it didn't become physical. You introduced Taki, but then tell us it didn't become physical. But then when the baby's paternity came into question, now, you know what I mean? The timeline kind of got a little, to me, it got a little interesting. Mm. That part of the memoir bothered me. I think she wanted to protect Stephanie, and it's understandable that she wanted to protect her daughter, because again, her daughter is the one who everybody's now going to look at in this situation. But again, the mother's actions, the father's actions, everyone's actions, it does, to the third and fourth generation, it does reflect on the children, not necessarily because the children did anything, but because of what their parents did. Yep, Rita does say later on that Bob began to resent her. She does say that. Prudent Mom says Rita trying to save face. She tried to get her lip back. I don't know why she said she thought the child was his. I have no clue. I don't know. We would have to ask her. I mean, based on what people are saying, other people are saying that he was very possessive of her. We don't know what, I mean, the fact that he did have another side. Let's just say, you know what I mean? He did have a Norval. He still had Norval in him, right? You know what I'm saying? So to the degree that he was personally versus private, people could be one way in public and a very different way in private. Yeah, the good friend did lean. The good friend did lean. Yeah, I saw Rohan speaking about her in that way. But I also, somebody sent me a clip on Rohan, and he also called his mother Hagar. I'm like, did Rohan? He said he had the choice to go between Rahab, no, not Rahab, Hagar's house, which is his mother's house, and Bob. I was like, did he just call his mom's Hagar? Doing the most. Doing the most. Let's see. Oh, y'all went on to, if I'm me, Bob, me and Taki have a fight. We still a fight for Jerry. Jerry say you would have fight Taki. You leave the woman, you never want the woman, you dash with the woman. I know you want to fight over the woman. I'm not messing with you. Oh, brother, help me. Yeah, he was doing the same thing. Thief no likes it, thief with long bag. Yeah, she said nothing started, but based on the timeline, something had to. Now y'all gonna make me. Something had to have gone down because the time tells. I'm a that there's a connection. Tate. I'm gonna put you out so you could come back in because it's not Remember, in 1971, Bob impregnates Rita and two other women all within a 2-3 week span. Like he was just going from First Street to Second Street. I don't know where he was going. He was just seeding it up. It must have been planting season, okay? Because all of them born at the same time. Are you the same? Let's see. But now I laugh. Yeah, the joke was too easy. Turkey was laying purpose. Yeah, me never pick up the joke. And I notice self-control, man. Me never pick up the joke. Yeah, I mean, as a mother, it says the fact that Rohan, Karen, and Julian love Rita in abundance. I mean, we take on different roles. Like somebody could be a really good mother, not the best wife. So just because sometimes we like to think just because somebody is good in one area, they're good in all areas. Rita had a deficit in the maternal area. So if she wanted to give love in the way in which she didn't receive it, then it makes sense that she's going to pour into this area, right? Because this is an area that she herself, sometimes they say, do the things that you wanted, be the person who you wanted for yourself when you were that age. So I can definitely see her mothering children, because she at one time used to take her little stool and cry on the side of auntie yard because of the way she felt, right? So yeah, it's definitely possible. Let's see here. I tell New that Bob and Rita were married. Yeah, I mean, again, it's probably like, what is she doing? You know what I mean? What is he doing? Or they're justifying. Sometimes when you want to do something, you justify. Well, he ain't here, and he might violate the woman them, and you're there by yourself, and you need like a help, and maybe bring some Irish mass and boil two banana and dumpling. Who knows? She was vulnerable, right? Let's see. Yep, they were young. They were young. They were young. I agree. They were young. Let me see what's going on here. Oh, Sadella talks about. Okay, Tate is reminding me that Sadella also talks about the fight at the hotel. Oh, she does she? When I go on commercial break, I think I remember that. She does. She does. Is it the same hotel? I'm wondering. She does talk about the fight at the hotel. So, there's a lot of cross referencing here. Let's see. Do do do. I'm going up to. Yeah. I think personally, Bob, again, like I said earlier, in the sight of, if you bring his grandfather or Mariah into the equation, if you bring his father into the equation, if you bring his childhood experience into the equation, Miss Gray into the equation, if you bring all of these things, there's a lot of jumbling, a lot of jumbling in the mind and the spirit going on with this young man who becomes a man who's doing all of this. All of this is showing us that even internally, according to Don Taylor, Bob was three people, or had these three different aspects of himself, all very present at the same time, right? Depending on who he's interfacing with. But you can see it. You can go from, yeah, man, I tell, and one love, and jumping up and then just beating somebody down because they took some money. What happened to one love in conversation? You know what I mean? Mm, I don't know that she had a bad reputation. I don't know. I don't know. Where are we getting that one from? Rita had a bad reputation. I don't know where that one came from. I don't. Let's see. Detective, I fit the work. Forget. I mean, you have to cross reference. You can't just be like, yeah, man, sit here, little on the top. Yeah, man. You have to really take time. See me take time. Me read the book first. That's just how my mind works. It's like a little photographic, a little bit. In when I'm reading stuff. And then I'm like, oh snap, they said that over there. Oh snap, they said. And then all of a sudden you just start cross-referencing to make sure that you ain't talking foolishness. Yeah, that one goes on. Sedella's book does go on. I actually stopped short of that. That's another conversation. One of the things I see is that Bob's inability to accept responsibility for his actions. And someone said that earlier, like when he teethed out the pot and when he ran off, when his mom, ran off when she was over there with Captain in the house and she ran off. There was a lack of teaching this young man to accept responsibility for his actions that later played out. So it's this person's fault and it's that person's fault, and this person made me do it and that person made me do it. Train the child in the way they should go. Don't let anytime. Don't let me start singing Jackie again. He broke her heart many times, many times. He put that joint in the food processor. He ain't break it. He was trying to mince that joint up. Like she wasn't a person. Yeah, he did have three children in the same span. Yep. Let me see here. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Anybody else have anything to share? Let me put this here. Because that's what I have for today. If you have anything to share, feel free to come up. If it's confusing, just take your time. Just take your time. I'm staying within the same vein. This week I went over conversion because that was a subject matter that was in Don Taylor's book. that was in Rita's book and it was in Sedella's book. So the same thing I just did now is the same thing I did earlier this week, which is Bob was going out trying to convert people to Rastafari, right? So it was interesting to see or to hear Don Taylor's version of how Bob felt. We don't know that Bob said that, right? But he's saying, according to what he heard, that Bob felt indifferent or resentful towards his mother, which I found curious. Could it be a possibility? It could. Because Rita kind of hints to it a little bit when he got some money one time and she said, "Oh, you're going to send some to your mom?" And then the response is for what? According to what Rita's saying. So when I read that first time, I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But for now, I see Tate is in the building. Welcome to the conversation.
Hey Mona, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. So I was reading Don's book and Zedella's book, and I liked the references that you talked about because I noticed the similarities, like the way they talk about how their marriage was pretty much just them fighting.
Right,
Um, And then I also remember Sedella talking about the fight in a hotel, but she didn't go into detail. She said something like there was a dispute in a hotel, but they went back on stage like everything was normal.
right.
So I guess she didn't get sent home. But then what annoyed me when I was reading Rita's book, because Sedella and Dawn both talk about how she tried to pass on Stephanie like Bob's child, but she doesn't really admit in her book that she tries to play it off like she thought it could be Bob's because they slept together. So
Who
I
that?
found that
Rita?
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was super weird. But overall, like from reading all three of the books, because even the way Rita talks about it, she talks about her marriage like an outsider. She talked about going to 56 Hope Road and not even feeling like it's a safe space. It was for Bob and the It Girls. I think she references Diane Jobson and
Right.
Cindy and Esther as like the It book pretty girls. So she kind of talks about like their marriage from an outsider's perspective. So overall, I feel like their marriage was kind of like a mistake. The picture that I see. I mean, they were only 18 and 19, and I feel like there were so many things playing on, like both of them coming from like similar backgrounds with poverty and not having two parents, but also I think maybe colorism as well and anti-blackness kind of like played a role in their relationships. Because I saw a review, another YouTuber was saying that even though like Rita was the quote unquote wife, she was still treated less than his like white mistresses and like worse. So I was wondering, I don't know. I don't know what you think.
Um, Come again with the last part. That even though she was the again, according to what is being said, that she was just wife in name, and even in that, he wouldn't
Mm,
validate her. You know, even if no one wrote these books, we heard the interviews ourselves. You know what I mean? Where
yeah.
he's not even claiming her in name. So maybe he felt like he made a mistake. According to him, he was tricked, and this may be why he felt resentment and indifference towards her. But at the same time, he was also benefiting from the fact that she was present. So only he can tell us why he continued in this way. But she definitely, based on what we're able to see, was mistreated, I would say.
And what was so eerie is like how both Don and Sedella, his mom talk about how he blamed the marriage or like the fact that they can't get a divorce on witchcraft.
Oh yeah.
I
And
found that so
I
eerie.
was gonna save that, but Don actually goes into, not only he told his mother that, but Don Taylor goes into thinking that, or saying that the witchcraft was coming from Auntie.
Yeah. He said
Yes,
that he
yeah.
was scared of.
I was
I
like,
found that.
what? Allegedly.
So maybe Bob was like, talking about like witchcraft and all, because it's weird. Because I think with his mom, he blamed it on another supernatural figure, a woman, but with Bob, he was blaming the auntie.
Right.
But his mom does say like his mom does mention that he was scared of the auntie
He was,
and
and Rita
uncomfortable, you
mentions
know.
that him and the auntie didn't have the best
Yeah.
relationship. Rita mentions that the auntie used to call him the boy. So that's why they moved at first to Saint Anne when she was pregnant again. Because I think it was with Ziggy, she's pregnant again, and they moved because he didn't like how auntie was treating him. So she does mention this back and forth, but Don kind of adds a spiritual aspect
Mm.
to it. So definitely, I see Jeremiah. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I see Jeremiah has joined the chat. Welcome to the conversation.
What's up, Amuna?
I'm here. I'm here. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. I had a couple questions for you,
No
just
problem.
of some of the topic that you covered this week,
Okay.
and it relates to Bob's personality and also his faith and his ganja use. So I'm just curious as to your thoughts in terms of, the fact that overall, the picture that kind of came across to me from your discussion this week is Bob had quite an influence over Rita and over Sedella as well,
Yeah.
and into their conversion to Rastafarian belief. So I'm just curious, when people are young and they are trying to sort themselves out and they are choosing to subscribe to a system of belief, um, that's kind of a powerful sway to have over another person, to influence that person into that direction where they accept that belief. So I'm just curious what you think in terms of how Bob's commitment to Rastafarian beliefs affected the way that he dealt with Rita. Because, I mean, typically most people are going to see Rastafarian viewpoints as kind of male dominant, I would think. I don't know if you agree with that or not. You could comment on that. But also the fact that he was influential um, in her coming to that belief system would kind of put him in a position where I could see how he would be maybe be overbearing. And just kind of curious of your thoughts on that.
Um. Well, based on the male dominated question is interesting. There was an interview where he was sitting with some other Rasta, and then I think the interviewer asked a similar question about the woman's role in Rastafari, and then he turns and looks for he calls Judy Mawat because Rita wasn't in space. So that definitely is something that um, would be perceived and I think is accurate in how Rastafari is presented in this male dominated space. And then the women have their designated spaces in which they're supposed to operate, right?
Sure.
As it relates to his sway over them, according to Rita, although he inducts her into this space, she already had the components that allowed her to stick it through and become more committed than he was at certain times, right? So I think that's what I gathered from her this week is that she was trying to illustrate that it wasn't Bob who necessarily made her have this faith. It was him who showed her this component of black is beautiful, this component of community, this component, this subset of the people within in Jamaica that they could belong to, right? So I think that's the aspect that he brought. But over the time, I think that based on the way she presented herself, there may have been times that she was more committed than he was, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that I could see that. You cut out for a minute, so I didn't quite catch all that you said. I'm sorry, but
No problem.
yeah, I mean, sometimes that's definitely true. I think where somebody is influenced by another person, and they may even take a more passionate ownership.
Right. Jeremiah is cutting out a little bit.
Let me know if I drop out because I think
you cut out for that whole like that last 10 seconds. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I can see where somebody may adopt a belief because of somebody else and potentially take that belief even further than the person who shared that with them. I think all that kind of plays into personalities too. About like the type of personality Rita had, and because Bob just seemed like this really, like he just carried a lot of intensity, and that's kind of where I was going with the ganja question too, because you were saying how Don Taylor mentioned that maybe he had these different kind of sides of his personality that would come out depending on who he was interacting with, and I'm just curious if like the marijuana use could have like played further into that, because a lot of things like marijuana use, like I've always viewed it as like a therapeutic sort of exercise because it definitely for a lot of people releases stress and like you mellow out, and the way you respond to people is going to be potentially a little more thoughtful or at least not as aggressive. And I just wonder if that like kind of maybe intensified the different sides for Bob through that practice.
I think it does. I mean, based on one of the interviews I saw, or it was an article that said a pound a day, like that's a bit excessive. Like how would smoking, if that is true, a pound a day affect you? You understand what I'm saying? Like, are you present? You know what I mean? Like, what's really going on? So, like you're saying, all of these things I think needs to be considered while we are looking at the man, the message, and the reality, really. As it relates to Rita, one more thing that differentiated her from him was the experience I spoke about this week in she seeing Selassie. Right? She being there when now this figure that everybody is projecting their hopes on and the prophecy on, she has this physical experience. Bob does not. So in Bob's space, it's still theoretical. It's still in theory because he didn't connect it. And you could kind of see in the way she narrates his letter, according to later on, actually, Don Taylor says that he was resentful for that. He was resentful that he was in America at the time. And he's this big proponent. He's this evangelist for Rasta, and he missed it. I can see how that would make somebody salty. He kind of sounded salty to me, but that's just my thought.
Yeah. Although, I mean, her testimony to me is it seemed kind of strange too, because, it seemed like she was so eager for some sort of indication to verify her belief. And then to say that she saw this mark in his palm, I mean, she had to be far away, man. And like,
she said she wasn't that's the part. She said she couldn't get close enough to the road. That's what she said. And everybody was stopping along the way. So then how did you get close enough if you couldn't get close enough? You understand what I'm saying?
It does seem like she saw what she wanted to see. So like every time she tells that story, I kind of cringe just a little bit because
it's the power of the mind still. You know what I mean? Again, she said everybody was smoking that day. We have to put all the factors in. There was a lot of excitement in the air. There's a lot of anticipation in the air. There's drumming in the air. There's ganja smoking in the air, right? Yeah. And hey, you pray and then you say you see what you saw. You know what I mean? It's an interesting story.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you can't discount somebody's experience as their experience.
Right.
End of the day, to turn around and say, man, I know like this is what I'm going to stake my life on.
Right.
So what I saw in that situation, like to me, it just seems kind of extreme. And that's where I feel like maybe Bob and Rita are people that operate in a level of extreme, but maybe in a different sort of direction.
And I think they do. And I think that's important because earlier on in these conversations, I was like, to a certain degree, we've taken the people and kind of like, and even the people were instrumental in making now even Bob Marley an idol, which becomes dangerous. And I think in Rita's case, even when she's having these interviews and they say, now that he's passed on, and she's like, he's not dead. And the way she like kind of transitioned into that, it's kind of like, hold on, Rita, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, pull it back a little bit. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's interesting because in one sense, it's like she can recognize Bob's mistreatment of her, but at the same time, she's still kind of still elevating him more than she should, which shows some characteristic in terms of her personality that we just have to consider.
all things considered.
And
Yeah, thank you so much. This is what these conversations are for because, again, this stuff has been swirling around 40, 50 years. 100 million books, 100 million documentaries, and all of this. What are we getting from it? What if we were to say, okay, at the end of the day, what can we take away from this conversation? You know what I
so
mean? And if we could take away some nugget, some element of truth, and apply the lessons learned for the betterment of our lives. People say, Amuna, listen to Bob Marley's song. I've been listening to Bob Marley's song before I was born. Probably in the womb, I'm listening to Bob Marley. Like, that's not it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, what can we learn as we're growing in this space that maybe we didn't know before? What can we let go of that was incorrect? You know what I mean? This is when they made the Ike and Tina Turner movie. It was clear to see that Ike and Tina Turner, although they worked together in this very same capacity, they were in an abusive relationship.
Right.
I think we're distanced from that so much so that when we read about it, we're like, no, it couldn't have been that bad. No, I don't think that's what was happening. But the reports are saying that's what was happening.
Right. Well, and I think you're tapping into a broader issue with all of what you're doing. In terms, and you bring this up quite a bit, I think, is that people don't necessarily love the truth. You know what I mean? Like, people see what they want to see.
True.
And one of the problems is, especially with like the internet age that we're in now, is everything gets polarized so fast. And like, people see one thing and they just kind of stake their ground off of one angle. And it's like they can't open up to anything else. And so I like what you're trying to do in terms of bringing in the different aspects of who's seeing from which angle. Mm-hmm. And then piece together, okay, well, like, let's, instead of just sticking to what we think or necessarily jumping to conclusions, let's see as much of the picture as we can and like just kind of accept it for what we can.
For what it is.
Yeah. Instead of saying, oh no, like Bob couldn't have been like that, or Rita was definitely like this. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Just a fair representation, like yourself.
Fair representation. I always say I wasn't there. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not trying to tear down anybody. If you had to go before people, you and somebody is saying you did X, Y, and Z, you would want the people to be as patient as they could in collecting the proper facts. You don't want people to be like, oh yes, me know same do it because I have on a black shirt. What? Yeah. I mean, I like black. So you know what I mean? You're like, what?
Yeah. We're always like a harsher critic with others than we are with ourselves, right?
And that's what I'm trying to say. If you can live in a house and not know everything that has happened in your house, there's no way we could presume to know everything that happened in a place that we were not in.
Yeah, 100%.
It makes sense? You still got to go look at your Ring camera. You got to go ask the people, what happened down here? You were in the same house. You heard the noise. You still don't know what happened. So, like you said, and I'm thankful that, it's translating that what I'm trying to do is just illustrate that we can get to a unity if we broaden our scope and allow the truth to be what it is and not spin it and mold it and make it become what we want it to become so that we can be comfortable. And that happens within our own lives as well. So thank you so much, Jeremiah, for coming on and sharing your thoughts.
All right. Yeah, man. Enjoy the rest of this. All right, cool.
All right. All right, everybody. You notice me start early today. What's time? 8:54. Me start early today because, boy, I was doing some catering job today. I'm going to be doing her thing. And me start early today, so I'm tired. All right. I love how come the woman them are. Okay. Let's see. Rasta don't believe in death. And that's the thing. That's another conversation for another day. I saw a video today. I actually got it. I will show that another time of Don Taylor beasting with the ABC News who was trying to video Bob in the casket. I think that's interesting. For whatever reason, the comment, he's like, but tell everybody, so no video, but tell everybody, we're going to show that. Because what was that conversation? Why you didn't want to show it, right? What was that conversation? Because if you say, I never saw the person, does that mean the person didn't die? We like, where are we going with the lines? We don't have to believe in something for it to be real. And can we have that conversation? You know what I'm saying? The spirit lives on, but the body, the flesh is no longer here in this third dimension, right? And so that's a reality. But the way she looks at the people when they say that to her is as if, no, he didn't die because he lives on through his music. Yeah, in another form. Physically, he's no longer among the land of the living, you know. And Rasta don't believe in a death. Who did Bob think jumped on Rita that day in the studio with the Duppy Puss? Who jumped on her if Rasta don't believe in a death? If Rasta don't believe in a death, who were they singing to in the graveyard? You know what I mean? Like, I think she is. I think CJ. I think this is an accurate. You can create a construct and build a construct, and then get stuck in the construct. And what happens is, I always talk about the cyclical nature of life. What happens is, for those who believe we do come back into earth, whatever lessons we didn't learn in this here go round. Oh yeah, if you believe that you shall return, you're going to have to go through those same lessons until you learn it. Because depending on how you look at it, life is school. And we're here for the soul to go through things so that the soul can elevate. This is how you have some souls that like, they seem like they've been here already, and some souls that seem like they're in another grade. We're all here in a large schoolhouse called life. And the lessons we didn't learn, oh yeah, they'll be back. That's the way I see it. So if you're trapped in a certain thing, and if you've made this person an idol in your mind, that's something that's going to have to come back and be dealt with, you know? Rita is a good one because she speaks highly of Bob in interviews and preserve his legacy like no other. But the question is, are we fully presenting the proper legacy if the reality is that the person that you're holding up was actually abusing you? Does that make you a good person, or does that make you an abused person who was trained to do this thing that you're doing? I'm not saying that she's a bad person. I don't know her. I'm just saying sometimes we elevate people. And I've seen this a lot during the antebellum period of slavery, that people would elevate people who oppress them because it makes them feel connected to them in some kind of way, and at the same time diminishing the fact that they violated them. You know what I mean? Healing and is a big part of my conversation here, and we can only heal through the truth. The truth shall set you free. And if we're not being truthful and honest with ourselves, then we're not necessarily going to get the healing that it is that we not only need, hopefully we want, but we definitely need as an individual, as a community, in a collective. Let me see here. All right, people, I am winding down here. Prudent mom says she want time travel upon the wall. No, I mean, I don't want to imagine like arguing, fighting, contending. Remember, Sadella says very early on, Rita is writing to her, lamenting about Bob leaving her. And if you watch the Esther Anderson documentary, when Rita's wondering where Bob is, see Bob, yeah? Hold on there. Let me get my thing. See Bob and Peter. Yeah, man. So what me I tell you is this. No, man, I idiot something that. No, man. She's like, where is Bob? I need help with the baby them. Same time, Bob. Yeah, man, me I tell you. So anyway, Esther, how me look? Me look good. Yeah. He over there, Bunny Smith and reasoning. What are we doing? He was not taking it seriously. I'm not saying he was young, but he was not taking it seriously. Not at that time. He was chilling hard. He gonna tell Esther Anderson, according to the Esther Anderson documentary, that when she takes him to Hellshire Beach, and they see Countryman, I believe, and they have like this little bungalow thing on the beach, and then he gonna finesse Esther, talking about, hey Esther, I wanna them I want, you know, I wanna them me and you for have. Next thing you know, homie disappears, goes to the other side of the island and starts building a bungalow with Esther. And one thing Esther said that was interesting, you see that little picture when Bob is always reading the newspaper? He was probably scoping out his next catty, because Esther's in the paper. She's movie star. She's with Sidney Poitier. And when he met her, she said, how do you know me? He said, I've been following you. So he's methodical. Let's just say that. He didn't accidentally try to holler at sis. Let's continue. Let's see. Muda's a serial entrepreneur. You don't know already? Come on, no, I'm different now. I got to order in. And I was like, I got to change hats. But yeah, I ran a food spot for a good couple of years. I tell food, you don't know already. So I had some work to do today. But I said, let me come on because today is Wednesday. I didn't make patty. I made empanada. You understand? And I said, I know patty that. I made empanada because the dough is easier. I'm going to keep it 100. Let's see. That was early on before Rasta. They were singing to the Duppies before Rasta. Okay, prudent mom, I'll give you that. Some Rastas believe in death. Yeah, 12 tribe. Then I'm saying he was more closely the Rasta thing is interesting. I grew up very Rasta oriented, Rasta adjacent, and it's just interesting stuff. Said wanted to write a will in the end, but Jobson didn't do it. Give him little law. Yeah, I saw that. I don't understand why. There's a possibility we don't know what was going on in his mind. I think I'm gonna be coming down on the story though. Y'all let us know what you want to read next. I was possibly thinking of reading Michael Manley's what's her name again? Oh gosh, I have her book in my cart on Amazon. Michael Manley's ex-wife wrote a book. Tell me her name again. And I was like, I want to read the book to see if we should read that book. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be rounding off this Bob Marley conversation in a minute, right? And so I was looking towards, let me see, what's her name again? I don't want to, Michael. Her name is Beverly Manley, and it's called The Manley Memoirs. I'm not sure. I saw a few interviews. I was like, this is kind of adjacent because Michael Manley during the time of, I'm kind of looking at that time period of the 70s. So I don't know. Let me know if you guys have read that. I know we wanted to possibly jump to something else, but this is a open book club. So your suggestions are welcome. I think we went into this Bob Marley topic deeply, and hopefully we're better for it. So that's what I was thinking about. Love you too, sis. Love you too, prudent mom. There's a difference between bashing someone and giving somebody a false representation of someone, right? It's like when Bob was in the interview with the guy. I forgot the name of the guy because it's getting late today, but he wanted him to his name is on the tip of my tongue. He wanted him to done the interview. Like he could have said something, but he's like, you know what? My name is about to say nothing, right? But Rita takes it a step further. Nobody's asking you to bash the father of your children, but you putting 20 on 10. You know what I mean? You're making it seem that the person was all of these things when in reality the story is different. Now people looking on, they're conflicted. They don't know what to believe. And then when Bob when Sedella told Rita that Bob said she gave her cancer due to her, and responded by saying he got cancer because of his wickedness. We're going to keep that one. Yeah, Nasima, we're going to come back through with that one because that's a whole nother topic, because that part is sad. That part really made me, the end part of this book about how he suffered. Like I said, a lot of people like to blow it up and make it this big picture, but none of us are beyond the realities of life, right? And so to see his very humanity at the end and to see how he suffered at the end, that is sad, man. It's sad. Yeah. Since good old Don Taylor told the truth. So we read a little bit of Don Taylor. I know we have like, don't read Don Taylor. Did he actually tell some truths in the portion? I ain't saying all. In the portion that we read, he told some truths. Let me know if you think he told some truths. Legacy is his music, not his personal life. Well, if he was writing autobiographical songs, then his personal life was his music. He was writing autobiographical songs. So when we're singing about, and some people are saying bad cat, then my job bad cat, job bad cat. When that means if some people say he's talking about Don Taylor, we're singing his personal life in his music. They were, according to some, they were linked. So can you really separate Turn Your Lights Down Low from Sidney Breakspeare? And this where now when we sing these songs and we bring this energy into our lives, sometimes an event in our life may mirror a song, and then we sing these songs with emotion and passion, so much so that we bring those experiences into our life. That's the power of music. So for people who think it's just separated in this particular aspect, I don't agree. The power of music is to bring this expression into reality and transfer it from person to person. It's a very know your one veggie patty. It's a very powerful tool. I actually made spinach and artichoke today. I don't want to go off into the food topic, right? But I made spinach and artichoke today. I usually make Jamaican beef, but with the veggie stuff. But today I just did spinach and artichoke. Nasima says Rita has said in interviews she made peace with the relationship. Y'all want people to carry bitterness and hate. Not necessarily. Beverly Manley, thank you. Yes, I saw that. I saw she gave an interview about giving Michael Mann bun. And I was like, did she just say she was like, I'm old now. I'm just going to tell you what it is. And I was like, did she just say she gave Michael Manley bun? I'm like, whoa, Miss Beverly. No, Miss Beverly. I'm not done yet. No, don't worry. I'm not all the way done yet, but we more than halfway through Sedella and Rita, right? We almost halfway through. We're on the other side of it now. So it's just a few more points I want to touch on, and definitely get the book them. You know what I mean? Get the book them for sure and read through. Did they ever live together as a family after he had outside children? They said no. Whoa, I heard that. I heard her giving an interview, Nasima, and talking about that. But I also wanted to look at how they changed the landscape at that time in Jamaica, right? How this political party, like I started doing the research of my own family and what happened during the migration. And so then I wanted to know, well, what was going on in Jamaica that so many people migrated during that time, right? And so this is kind of how I got sucked into this time period. So for me, the Bob Marley stories kind of sits right in. It kind of gives the backdrop. Y'all know I'm a writer, right? So I need to know what's going on, what was happening, what was the mood, what was the energy. And so this Beverly Manley, Michael Manley story, I think fits right in that time period to kind of give an understanding for those who came later what the atmosphere was like and what was really happening. The separation of Whalers and Mark Linterwell. Yeah. At what point did Bob take Rita to the beach? Oh, yo, we gotta get to that part, CJ. Y'all going ahead. I think Rita spoke about it, but she leaves out some key details, and then Sedella speaks about it. So that definitely, we probably get into that like next week or something. That's something we're gonna cross-reference as well. Rowan, you want Rowan to write a book? Rowan is interesting. The laugh, Rowan's laugh be having me laughing, man. Rowan's laugh be having. Cindy was an opportunist. I mean, according to Don Taylor, that's how he kind of placed her, like she was an opportunist. He said something curious. He does have a chapter about Sydney, and I guess we'll come back and look at that, where he's saying where Bob saw her and how she didn't want him till he took over Hope Road and all of this other stuff. So that'll be for another day. I try to keep these as respectful, even though we have our thoughts and opinion. Like, a lot of these people are still around, and if you want to sit down and have a conversation one day with them, you don't want them to be like all upset and mad because you said crazy things that weren't founded. This is why I try to stay as much as I can to the what it says. Skill Cole, I don't know why he didn't already write a book, Nasima. Hopefully he does soon. People are asking for Beverly Kelso. I saw that she said she was supposed to write a book. That was years ago. I don't know if she ever. This is why I say it's important to write your story. Tell your narrative. Tell your story. Even though, because they told their story, whether or not we want to like it or not, that we can go back now and glean at least something from it, right? Marcia say you want to hear more about Don. What else you want to hear about Don? Don be BCing on the text, boy. He be going in. Don don't got no kind of filter. What I did come across was Don Taylor's son responding to someone about his father, which I found interesting. I might come and share that because he has a son, and the son is on the internet. The son is on the internet. And let me see if I don't have anything else. I don't think they did. I don't think Marcia or Judy wrote a book. I don't think they did. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen it. Y'all be waiting in vain for some love, but the whole time you got a whole life. Oh, merciful Father. Let me see. Listen, Rita must be at peace. I can't see Skip Marley remaking the Sydney song. It was going to hurt his sick grandmother. No, I think Skip kind of remade the song. To me, Slow Down gave me Turn Your Lights Down Low feeling. Have you guys heard the Skip Marley? And Skip Marley, I like his delivery. That's Sedella's son, which is Bob's grandson. He did Slow Down. Slow down, let me love you. That song reminds me, it's reminiscent of Turn Your Lights Down Low. So I kind of feel like it was sad to hear him say that he didn't know his grandfather, but he had to watch like all of his grandfather's videos and everything about him, much like people on the internet, to kind of get a connection with him, right? We need a few more weeks. I thought y'all know I got a little bit of. I'm like, dang, I did a lot of videos on this. I'm thinking, I'm combing through it. You know how you combing something out? I'm combing through it. I'm like, okay, I'm almost to the end. There's a few more key points, and then we could kind of round the discussion off. Oh, the Yvette lady who's supposed to be the mother for the last baby. She could go in there. She's in there. Yeah, she's in there. But how do we know somebody who may be sexually maybe a sex addict or compulsive, and he had these urges. Remember, this energy is all around him in childhood. His grandfather is going from person to person, and three people are like, oh, Bob was with Cindy's friends. His father was with three sisters, his grandfather. So he saw this energy. This energy is around. And if you feed it, it continues to grow. So this might be a possibility that he himself could not control himself. But the way that they're describing his behavior, it looks as if he himself was at some point lost control of his own self. That's what it looks like. Okay. Take a poll. Sister Hulda, a poll. What me for take poll for? Which poll? Oh, what to read next? What to read next? Sorry, I'm just coming to that. She wanted Sadella to tell Bob said she get ring. Yeah, I think all of his children have been. I don't talk much about Rowan's book, but Rowan, not Rowan. Tell me his name again. Kimani's book, but Kimani seems to be all of them have their own kind of hurt still, right? And so Kimani's book was just a lot about how he was hurting. You know where a lot of this stuff was illustrated, and I never even realized that movie was out until now, and it came out years ago. One Love, but the One Love movie was Kimani Marley was part of the movie, and he was in it. How many people saw that movie, the One Love movie? A lot of even the kitchen, a lot of the scenes that we see from some of these books were in the original One Love movie. Let me see if I can find it and put it here for you guys. Tell me if you guys have seen this movie. And then I'm going to wind down. Hold on. It's here on YouTube. It was interesting. It was a cute little movie. It was done back in 2005. And it's actually free on the YouTube. Here it is. Here it is. That's the One Love movie. I saw a lot of the book in the movie, like the girl, her peoples was a pastor, and they didn't want her to be with a Rasta man. You know that song? She's in love with a Rasta man. You know that tune there? Neville Garrick, he ain't write a book either. Like they keep talking a lot, but bro, write it down. Write it down. Yeah, we're gonna get to the beach scene. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Beverly Kelso. Yeah, she's getting up in age, and somebody should have been chronicling this stuff. I think he's been doing stuff. I've been seeing him doing like excursion. Rowan, I think he's been doing stuff from before, because I looked from years ago, and I've seen him like in touring Jamaica and doing this and doing that. He's been all over the place. So you guys holler at the people who you want their books to come out. I mean, in the sense of, you don't think Slow Down was Turn Your Lights Down Low? It's giving me Turn Your Lights Down Low energy, in the sense of it's elevated. Like the grandfather was impatient in the sense of, not Turn Your Lights Down Low. I Don't Want to Wait in Vain. Did I say Turn Your Lights Down Low? I meant I Don't Want to Wait in Vain. I Don't Want to Wait in Vain and Slow Down, to me, not Turn Your Lights Down Low. I Don't Want to Wait in Vain and Slow Down, to me, feels like elevated version of each other. All right, everybody. I'm almost at the end here, and I'm going to rest up. Thank you. This was a Boom Marley book report. I remember a book report back in the day. You have to go and go do your homework. All right, a book report. Yeah, that book report, man. This is a long book report. A long book. Yeah, Kimani does seem hurt to me. And again, would be interested to read something from Jamaican Kincaid. Do I have that? Or George Lamming? Put y'all suggestions in the box. We're going to move through and see, how it reads, how we're able to discuss it, how we're able to incorporate it. So definitely put your suggestions in the box. Let me see, Sandela, let me see. Oopsie. Kimani is the black sheep because he took the 60. Yeah, Kamani said when he got the money, they were trying to tell him what to do with it. He was like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's a cool movie. You hated her voice? Okay. All right, people. Let me go all the way to the end here. Okay, we have, but she doesn't spill tea in her book. She skips over her affairs. What does she talk about? Like, again, I would read it for my personal, and if it's something that can come to the conversation or add value to the conversation. I haven't read it as yet. Like I said, my son said, Mommy, how many books do you have? Oh, Bob Marley. You got to cross-reference. I saw that. I think I have to get a special, it's on a special network, The Three Little Birds. I saw that. I also saw Black Cake. I don't know how many people saw Black Cake. It took me a minute to get over the accents on Black Cake, because I was like, who is talking? But after you got over the accents on Black Cake, then the core of the storyline was good. But the accents had me for a minute. Y'all trying to read Duppy book? What's this? White Witch of Rose Hall? What? Y'all put your suggestions in. Put your suggestions in. Yeah, that Divided Soul, that Marvin Gaye Divided Soul is, shoot, that's another. I'm trying to get some more Caribbean authors in here. I'm not saying the Divided Soul is good. I'm not even going to hold you. I'm trying to judge up some more of the Caribbean authors as we get into this conversation, because some people think Caribbean authors are not present or that we don't read them, or, these kind of conversations. I'm like, yo, we're here. It's not true. It's not true. All right, everybody. All right. How many people would be interested in writing a book about their own story? Do you think your story is interesting enough to write a book about? And if you did, what would be your angle? Would you start like the year was 18? Like, how would you start it off? What would you talk about? Because you may not think it's interesting, but trust and believe it may have value for somebody who can learn from your experience. So if you were to write your own book, what would your opening chapter be? I'll just leave that there, because y'all know I like, what would your opening chapter be? I actually, let me let you know in a little bit. Let me let you know. We don't do it already. Hold on there. But me have to take it because I have to do some few more edits. But our next book, but me have to pull it. It's an autobiographical book. Okay? So when I say, what would it be? When you do something like this about your own life, it allows you to process, to go back, to move through the internals of your own mind, process your past, your mistakes, your hopes, your dreams, your disappointments, and come out better on the other side. You understand? So when I'm saying that the value in something like this and taking the time to do it, and you can do another part at another time in your life. You say, I'm kind of young, but there's great value in doing it for yourself as well as others to share. So I'm not just talking. See that? I've done it. This one is not Island Love. This one is a different one, right? But in this one was healing. It was very healing and very cathartic. And I'm just saying, if you were to write your own story, what would it be? With that said, let me come all the way down to the bottom. I started mine years ago, my years old, but after a miscarriage, I lost interest. I'm sorry for your loss. But I think you should pick it up again. Leah says, my story is ugly and beautiful at the same time, but it's hard for me to write. I'm not old enough. My story is not finished yet. It not have to be finished. You see, Peter Tosh, when he sat there, he said he was going to write a book, and he didn't. Now, the parts about Peter Tosh's story, we don't know because he was young, but he didn't think maybe at that time he needed to do don't wait. Each day is a gift. Don't wait. Write what you have right now. You understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who would have said, yeah, I'm going to do it at this part. I'm going to do it at that point. I'm going to do it at this point. We're assuming. We're assuming. We're assuming. Okay, you have Caribbean authors come from the Caribbean to UK. That's what's up. Are people willing to spill the family secrets if they wrote their own story? Again, there's different ways you can write your own story. Like, okay, the people are alive and they're doing, you can write an autobiographical novel. That's what I wrote, an autobiographical novel. Usually when people get older in their life and they really don't care, they just tell you, yeah, the person lived on 3rd Street on the 3rd floor and apartment 203. Like, they're going to tell you all the business. It really just depends. There's many ways in which you can approach it. So is it, and again, it's all about how you choose to tell the story. I think me and my baby father story would be juicy. You don't have to be that old. I'm not that old. Winter says she's been journaling for years. That's what's up. That's what's up. Exactly. I heard Peter was going to write a book, but he didn't make it. I do. You inspired me. So I started jotting down. Jot it down. The year was 1892. My great grandma was born. You know, how would you start the story? You know what I mean? So don't think you're too young. Don't think there's not, all of that. Just start writing. Just start writing. It's you. Who's better equipped to tell your story but you? I think I will, because I go tell it down. Why? Okay, it's called CarryCon LA. If you want to drop it, if there's a link, you could put it in the comment section below. I enjoyed the story from beginning to almost end. Thank you so much, Vanette. She's Carrie Beyond. You could put the link in the box, because I think there's a girl on Instagram or TikTok who reads Caribbean authors and things like that. So yeah, definitely there's a space for it's healing in telling our story. This is why a lot of us are getting value from this, because there's healing in even reading people's stories who come from the same place as you, have similar experiences, and so we can move forward, because there was a lot of trauma done post-slavery. You know what I mean? Even though our grandparents may not have been born in enslavement, but you came under colonialism, you came under a certain government that created a certain culture that caused more trauma, and we are the children of the children. You understand? So there's value. Nobody thinks say it too. But did first start write my story. I did 25-year-old. I didn't think I was too young. I was like, the musings of a 25-year-old. Why not? I feel this is great. Yes, for Latin American and Caribbean studies. I agree. If you go to Latin American and Caribbean studies on Amazon, you're not going to see much. Ask me how I know. You're not going to see much, because we're not writing our stories. If you go over there, you are not going to see much. You're mostly, as a matter of fact, if you go over there, you're mostly going to see Spanish Caribbean. You're not going to see a lot of stories from Caribbean authors. So with that said, you guys put all your suggestions in the box below. I think I might have to share that part of my life. It was juicy, emotional, ugly, but beautiful, all in one. Thank you guys all for sharing. Thanks for rocking with me. It is 9:29. I have been doing this for 2 hours. So guess what? Speaking of story, How are you guys enjoying? Are you guys enjoying Island Twist? I wrote it and I'm still enjoying Island Twist because this guy, Basil Thompson, is a mess. Basil Thompson is a mess, guys. So, Yerwa, if you're enjoying Island Twist, let me know. I will be back reading another portion because it was a blast for me to write. So, with that said, Ramona, it's refreshing listening to you as you are so positive and seem to have good values. Wishing nothing but the best. Thank you so much. I'm humbled. Yeah, we do come from an oral tradition. We do. I would agree. But what happens when the elders are not talking no more? What happens when the people not listening to the elders no more? What happened when the children no longer sit at granny foot? What happened when grandfather, they said when a person dies, a library passes away because all of their experiences and everything that was with them. If you can no longer say, my grandfather used to say, my granny used to say, my mother used to say, my father used to say, when we no longer sit and listen to them anymore or hear their stories anymore, then we can't repeat them because they're gone. There is I'll leave you with this. In Israel, when the Israeli nation came for the Ethiopian Jews in Operation Solomon and Operation Moses in the 80s and 90s, they took the Falasha or the Beta Israel and they took them out of Ethiopia by airlift, secret mission, and they airlifted them to Israel. There is a documentary on, a short one, that talks about the children. So there's 3 generations now, right? Because that's the 80s and 90s. So you have the people, the grandparents, the parents, and the children. The children can no longer communicate with their grandparents because they don't know Amharic. They grew up in another culture. So that knowledge, that history, gone. Just like that. Before this point, according to the narrative, they could recite 7 generations from memory. And in one fair swoop, in the space of less than 20 to 30 years, all of that history that was oral tradition gone. Because now they have assimilated and their children is in the culture and they're no longer interested in what their old granny, who they can't understand, is saying. And now all of that rich history has disappeared. It's important because why? We're talking about Bob Marley, who was looking at Ethiopia, who was saying Solomon and David and the Bible and the connection and all of these things. And these people went in, brought them to the land, and then like wiped their memory, like Men in Black. So write it down, is what I'm saying. Write it down. Yep, it's gone. There's a documentary. If I find it, I'll put it in the description below. It's like calls like 7 generations or something like that. Gone, just like that. So with that said, everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in. Let me go ahead and give you my thing now. They're called Beta Israel, or Bet means house in Hebrew. So when they call them Beta Israel, or there means house of Israel, house of such and such, right? The word that really is kind of a pejorative term is Falasha. When they call them Falashan Jews or Falashas, which means strangers, right? And so that was the name that was given to them when they migrated down into Ethiopia. So when you get into the Selassie story, and when you get into how he's now connected to the throne of David, I don't want to go down that slippery slope, but I'm saying all this to say that the story is deep. And if we lose touch with it, then we're going to repeat some things that we may not want to repeat. All righty then, everybody, bless up yourself. Have a good night. And we'll see you again. All right.